What if everything you believed about your life, your family, your past, even your identity was a lie? What if the father you thought was dead had been searching for you all along? And what if your entire world changed the day you visited your mother's grave? This is the true heart-shattering journey of a young girl in a wheelchair who uncovered a secret that would rewrite her future forever. Stay with us, because what happens next will leave you in tears. Dear friend, what you're about to experience is not just a story. It's a deeply human journey about lost resilience and the quiet, unexpected ways love finds us when we need it most. If this is your first time here, I invite you to drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing your voice. And if you're someone who believes in second chances and the hidden strength of ordinary people, and in stories that stay with you long after they end, consider subscribing and tapping the bell icon. We share moments that matter. Thank you for being part of this one. Now let's begin. Have you ever stumbled into a place so steeped in memory that it seemed to whisper secrets you weren't meant to hear? For 9-year-old Emily Carter, that place was Magnolia Cemetery in Charleston, South Carolina, and what she would discover there would shatter everything she thought she knew about her life. Emily had spent her entire childhood at Charleston Children's Haven, a modest but loving group home. She had never known a father. All she had was a single faded photograph of her mother and a music box that played a haunting melody, the only things left to connect her to a past that seemed forever out of reach. It was a crisp November morning when Miss Brenda Coleman, the Haven's director, gently told her, "Emily, I think it's time you visit your mother's grave." Emily's heart raced. In 9 years, no one had ever taken her. Part of her was thrilled. Another part was terrified. What if it made her feel even more alone? When they arrived at Magnolia Cemetery, a cold mist curled between the old oaks draped in Spanish moss. The place seemed to hum with unseen energy. Emily clutched a bouquet of daisies, her mother's favorite, she had been told, as Miss Coleman wheeled her gently down the winding path toward an ancient stone beneath a massive magnolia tree. That's when they saw him. A tall man in a dark overcoat stood alone by the headstone, his shoulders hunched, head bowed. His trembling fingers traced the carved letters of Emily's mother's name. Miss Coleman instinctively stopped. "We should wait," she whispered. But it was too late. The man turned his eyes, landing on Emily. The world seemed to stop. He stared, frozen, as if seeing a ghost. "No, it can't be he," whispered hoarsely. His face turned ashen. Miss Coleman stepped protectively in front of Emily's wheelchair. "Sir, we didn't mean to intrude. You have her eyes," the man said, his voice breaking. Emily stared at him, confusion swirling. "Who are you?" Miss Coleman asked, suspicion lacing her tone. He steadied himself, trying to regain composure. "I'm Dr. Nathan Hale. Olivia Carter was my wife." The words crashed into the air like thunder. Emily gasped. Miss Coleman's eyes widened. "That's impossible." "We were told she had no living family. Her husband had died." Dr. Hale's face darkened. "I was told they both died, that neither survived that night." The next moments blurred into a haze of disbelief. Emily's hands tightened around her daisies. Her breath caught in her throat. "Are you saying you're my father?" she whispered. Tears welled in his eyes. He knelt beside her. "I am. I never knew you lived." No movie scene, no novel could prepare a heart for that moment. A child who'd spent her life believing she was alone, now faced with a stranger claiming to be her father. A father who had mourned a child he thought lost forever. As if pulled by an invisible thread, Emily slowly reached out her trembling hand. Dr. Hale took it gently, his own shaking. "You have her hands, too," he murmured. For the first time, Emily's heart stirred with something new. Not certainty, but possibility. Miss Coleman, eyes shimmering, placed a steadying hand on Emily's shoulder. "Perhaps we should talk somewhere warmer." The drive back to the Haven was silent, except for Emily's unspoken questions swirling louder than ever. Later that night, she sat by her window, the music box softly playing. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered into the darkness. "Mama, did you know he was out there? Did you try to tell me?" But the box only answered in song. There's a lesson here. Sometimes the deepest truths lie buried beneath years of silence and pain, and it takes unimaginable courage to unearth them. In a single moment, Emily's world had expanded beyond the walls of Charleston Children's Haven, but with that expansion came uncertainty, fear, and hope all tangled together. And the story was only beginning. Because sometimes the past doesn't stay buried, and sometimes when it surfaces it brings more questions than answers. In the days that followed, Emily would discover that someone had worked very hard to ensure her father never found her, and that the threads of her life had been woven with deliberate deception. But first, a fragile bridge had to be built between two strangers, bound by blood, but separated by grief. And that's where we'll go next. Dr. Nathan Hale's footsteps echoed in the old hallways of Charleston Children's Haven as he returned the next afternoon, a small photo album pressed tightly in his hand. His heart pounded with a strange mix of hope and dread. Less than 24 hours earlier, he had discovered that his daughter, whom he had mourned for nearly a decade, was alive. Now he was about to meet her again, not in the shadow of a cemetery, but in the fragile light of a possible future. Emily Carter waited in the small sitting room, her wheelchair turned toward the window. Her fingers absent-mindedly traced the grain of the wooden armrest. She didn't know how to feel. The word father felt unfamiliar, too big to fit in her world. What if he disappeared again? What if this was all a mistake? Ms. Brenda Coleman knelt beside her, smoothing a stray lock of hair. "Sweetheart, you don't have to say or do anything you're not ready for. Just be yourself." The knock at the door made Emily's breath hitch. Miss Coleman opened it, revealing Nathan, looking less imposing than before in a soft gray sweater instead of a starched coat, his eyes uncertain. He held out the photo album like an offering. "Hello, Emily," he said softly. "I thank you for seeing me." Emily's voice was small but steady. "Hello, Dr. Hale. Please call me Nathan, or whatever feels right." A silence settled between them, heavy and fragile. Finally, Nathan slid the album toward her. "I brought something. Pictures of your mom. I thought you might like to see them." With trembling fingers, Emily opened it. The first photo stole her breath, a young woman with eyes so much like her own, laughing on a beach, her hair wild in the wind. Page after page unfolded a life Emily had never known: her mother as a medical student, her mother painting a nursery, her mother radiant with love. Tears welled up as she whispered she was beautiful. Nathan's voice thickened. "And she would have loved you more than anything." Then Emily hesitated. "Why? Why didn't you know about me?" Nathan drew a long breath, choosing each word with care. "When you were born, there was a terrible storm. The hospital lost power. I was told both you and your mother didn't survive. I believed them. I grieved for you every day." Miss Coleman interjected gently. "We were told the same, that there was no family. It seems someone made sure to keep you apart." Nathan's jaw clenched. "I intend to find out who and why." For Emily, the room seemed to tilt. So many years alone, could they have been different? Her small voice broke the silence again. "Are you going to stay?" Nathan's eyes shone with unshed tears. "If you'll let me, I will never leave again." Later that week, Nathan returned, this time with a small silver-wrapped box. Emily, now more curious than wary, met him in the sun-dappled library. Inside the box lay a delicate music box identical to the one she'd kept for years, but newer, untarnished. "Your mom gave me this to hold for you," Nathan explained. "She wanted you to always hear music in your life." When the first notes filled the room, Emily's tears came freely. It was the same melody that had comforted her countless lonely nights. In that moment, a thread stretched across time, weaving her heart to her mother's, and now to her father's. But beneath the budding connection lay questions Emily was too afraid to ask. She carried them like pebbles in her pocket. Would Nathan still want her if he knew how hard her life could be? Would she have to leave the only home she'd ever known? The next visit brought more than answers. It brought a new ally. Nurse Diane, an old family friend, had reached out to Nathan after hearing whispers of the cemetery meeting. "There's something you should know." She confided, her voice low. "That night, your wife's chart was altered. I suspected it, but when I raised concerns, I was silenced. Someone didn't want you to know the truth." Nathan's fists clenched. The betrayal was deeper than he imagined. But now he had a new mission, not just to rebuild a family, but to reclaim the truth. Meanwhile, Emily wrestled with her own fears. During an art session, she asked Miss Coleman, "If I leave, will I still be me?" "Oh, sweetheart," Miss Coleman said, pulling her close. "Who you are doesn't change because of where you are or who you're with. You will always be Emily Carter, brave, kind, and loved." Encouraged, Emily asked to visit Nathan's house. She wanted to see this new world for herself. The house stood stately by the Ashley River, its columns white against a deep blue sky. Inside, the rooms were beautiful, but cold. Pictures of Emily's mother adorned the walls, untouched by time. "I had these," Nathan said softly, "but they felt incomplete without you." He showed her a room he had begun to prepare: wide doorways, low shelves, a garden visible through large windows. "I want this to be a place where you feel at home," he said. "No pressure, only possibility." Emily smiled, then her brow furrowed. "What if I can't do what other kids do? What if I need too much help?" Nathan knelt, meeting her gaze. "You are perfect exactly as you are. You don't need to change for me or anyone." But even as he spoke, another truth loomed. He had recently consulted a colleague in Germany about a potential new treatment that might improve Emily's mobility. He wanted the best for her, but would she see it the same way? Over dinner, he broached the subject. "Emily, there are doctors doing amazing work. If you'd like, we could explore." Her fork clattered to the plate. "You want to fix me?" "No," he said quickly. "Only if you want to. You are enough exactly as you are." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "Mom wouldn't want me to be fixed like a broken toy. Miss Coleman says I'm whole." Nathan's heart ached. "She's right. I'm sorry. I should have listened." That night, as he drove her back to the Haven, the silence between them was heavier than any storm. At the gate, Emily finally spoke. "You don't have to try so hard. Just be here." "I will," he promised, voice thick with emotion. "If you'll let me." In the days that followed, Nathan returned not with grand ideas, but with quiet gestures, reading her favorite books, helping with homework, learning how to braid hair poorly to Emily's amusement. Each visit chipped away at her doubts, stitch by fragile stitch. One afternoon, while tracing a new picture of her mother, Emily found something, a folded note hidden behind the frame. "To my darling child," it read, "may you always hear the music in life even when others hear only noise. All my love, Mom." Tears blurred the words as Emily clutched the note to her heart. In that moment, she understood her mother had always wanted her to embrace who she was, music and all. And now, with her father beside her, a new song was beginning. but the harmony would soon be tested by forces neither of them had yet seen. The following Saturday, Emily Carter wheeled up the newly built ramp that led to the back entrance of Dr. Nathan Hale's house. Sunlight filtered through the oak trees along the Ashley River, and the breeze carried the scent of salt and honeysuckle. It was a beautiful day in Charleston, and for the first time Emily was entering the home of a man she was starting to believe might really be her father. The inside of the house was pristine, every surface gleaming, every object perfectly placed. There were no scuff marks on the floors, no toys tucked under couches, no mismatched cups in the cabinet. It felt more like a model home than a lived-in one. Emily wheeled slowly through the front hall, taking in the silent artwork, the carefully coordinated furniture. Everything was beautiful, and everything was cold. Nathan walked beside her a little too formally. He pointed out the modifications he'd made, widened doorways, low handles, smooth flooring throughout. Next week they'll lower the kitchen counters, he said, and I'm adding grab bars in the bathroom. I want everything to be comfortable for you. Emily nodded politely, murmuring a thank you. But something didn't sit right. The house was trying so hard to be perfect, she wondered if there was any space left for being human. I want to show you something, Nathan said, motioning toward a room on the second floor. Well, what used to be my office. Inside was a room hastily converted, a bed with a floral quilt, a couple of stuffed animals still bearing their price tags, a lamp with a bright pink base and sticker residue on the side. The salesperson said these were favorites for 9-year-old girls, Nathan said, smiling shyly. Emily rolled in, slowly, looking around. It was nice, but it wasn't hers. Not yet. During lunch, which Nathan had awkwardly prepared himself and served at the long, formal dining table, Emily barely touched her food. A housekeeper hovered nearby, silent and watchful. Emily hadn't expected staff. At the Haven mealtimes were noisy, communal, full of elbow bumping and laughter. This felt more like a museum exhibit. Finally, Nathan noticed her discomfort and suggested, "Would you rather eat in the kitchen next time?" Emily nodded. That'd feel more normal. After the plates were cleared and the housekeeper had retreated, Nathan opened a folder from the counter. "I've been researching some treatments," he said gently. "There's a clinic in Germany doing amazing things with children your age, stem cell work, neurorehabilitation. It might help with your mobility. No pressure, but I just want to give you every chance." Emily's expression fell. She stared at her untouched dessert. "You mean to fix me?" Nathan looked stricken. "No, sweetheart, to help you, if it's something you'd want." Her voice wavered. "But what if I don't want to be fixed? What if I'm okay like this?" "You are okay," he said quickly. "More than okay. You're incredible. I guess I thought maybe you wanted more freedom, more options. My legs don't work," she said quietly, "but that doesn't mean I'm broken." Nathan was silent for a long moment. Then he knelt beside her chair, meeting her gaze. "You're absolutely right. And your mother would have said the same thing. She always reminded me that people aren't puzzles to solve. Thank you for reminding me, too." The ride back to the Haven was quiet. Emily looked out the window most of the way, watching the trees blur by. Nathan gripped the steering wheel mentally, replaying every word, every pause, hoping he hadn't undone what they'd been building. At the Haven, Miss Coleman greeted them at the door. "How was the visit?" Emily hesitated, then answered honestly. "His house is really big and clean, but it doesn't feel like anybody lives there." That night she lay in bed, her music box playing softly. She held the note from her mother, rereading it by the moonlight. "May you always hear the music in life, even when others hear only noise." She whispered to the darkness, "I think I'm starting to hear it." The following week, Nathan returned, not with blueprints or treatment brochures, but with a simple lunch and a sketch pad. "I was wondering if you'd help me," he said. "Design your room. Your real room. However you want it." Emily's eyes lit up. She began drawing a wall of shelves for books, a window bench, a purple accent wall, a small upright piano. She even added a wheelchair lift to a backyard treehouse. "That might be hard to build." Nathan chuckled. "You're a surgeon," she teased. "A treehouse should be easy." When she showed him the drawing, his throat tightened. "Is this how you imagine it could be?" "It's how I'd like it to be," she said suddenly, unsure. "Well," then he said, ruffling her hair, "that's exactly what we'll build." Days turned into weeks, and their visits developed a rhythm. Tuesdays and Thursdays, Nathan picked her up after school. Saturdays were adventure days, picnics, museums, art exhibits. They learned each other's rhythms. Nathan always called ahead to ask about wheelchair access. He carried a portable ramp in his trunk. He learned to read Emily's signs of fatigue, and she learned the way his hands shook when he was nervous, even if his face stayed calm. One rainy afternoon, as they shared ice cream in the courtyard, Emily looked up at him and asked, "What would happen if I lived with you?" Nathan's spoon froze midair. "Have you been thinking about that sometimes? But then I think about Miss Coleman and the other kids, and I feel weird, like I'm leaving them." Nathan set his bowl aside and took her hand. "Family isn't about choosing one person over another. It's about making a bigger circle. Ms. Coleman will always be part of your life. If you wanted to live with me, I'd want her to visit all the time." Emily was quiet for a while, then nodded. "I think I'd like that, a bigger circle." Later that evening, Ms. Coleman found Emily carefully folding the drawing of her dream room and placing it next to the music box on her dresser. "Big plans," Miss Coleman asked, smiling softly. "He's changing everything," Emily whispered. "For me." "That's what love looks like," Miss Coleman said gently. "It doesn't always come with loud promises. Sometimes it looks like blueprints and ramps and someone willing to learn." Emily looked up. "Is it okay?" "If I want that, sweetheart," she said, hugging her tightly. "It's more than okay. You deserve it." Somewhere between the quiet corners of the Haven and the echoing hallways of Nathan's house, a promise had begun to form. Not one spoken aloud, but written in actions drawn in pencil and folded into hearts still learning how to love again. The air in the Charleston courthouse was thick with quiet tension as Nathan Hale adjusted his tie in the hallway mirror. 3 months had passed since the day he found Emily at her mother's grave, and those months had been filled with discovery, healing, and growing love. Yet today, all of it could be threatened. In a few short moments, the future they had begun to build might slip through their fingers. Emily waited beside him in her wheelchair, dressed in a navy blue dress they had chosen together. In her lap, she clutched a small folder filled with drawings and photographs, her version of evidence proving the life they had begun to create. Her fingers traced the folder's edge as she whispered, "Dad, what if the judge says no?" Nathan knelt beside her. Emily judges want what is best for children. All we can do is tell the truth about how much we love each other. That's enough. Just then, Ms. Brenda Coleman arrived, dressed in a tailored gray suit. Her presence alone steadied them both. She knelt in front of Emily and smiled. "You both look perfect. Just be yourselves." Inside the courtroom, the walls were softer than Nathan had imagined. No imposing columns, no grand bench towering over them. Judge Lorraine Parker was known for her fairness in family cases, and her warm eyes met Emily's with a gentle nod. "Dr. Hale," she began, "I've reviewed your petition for adoption. This is an unusual case, biological father reunited with daughter after a tragic miscommunication. I would like to hear from all involved." Nathan spoke first, his voice steady. "Your Honor, I was misled to believe my wife and daughter had both died during childbirth. It wasn't until recently that I learned Emily had survived. Since then, I have done everything I can to be a part of her life and to create a home where she is loved and supported." Judge Parker nodded, then turned to Ms. Coleman. "As Emily's guardian of record, do you support this petition?" "Wholeheartedly," Ms. Coleman said. "Dr. Hale has demonstrated not only love, but the willingness to learn what Emily needs, not just physically but emotionally. Their bond is genuine." Before the judge could respond, the courtroom doors opened. A well-dressed woman entered her presence, icy and composed. A lawyer followed close behind. "Your Honor, my apologies for the interruption," the lawyer began. "I am Richard Morton, representing Mrs. Miranda Sutton, maternal aunt of Emily Carter. We are filing a counter-petition for custody." The room fell silent. Nathan's pulse quickened. Miranda Sutton, Olivia's estranged sister, a woman who had never once reached out to Emily. Judge Lorraine Parker gestured for them to proceed. Miranda rose, her voice clipped and cool. "Your Honor, I was unaware of my niece's existence until recently. My sister and I had our differences. But a single father with a demanding medical career cannot properly care for a child with special needs. I can provide a stable two-parent home and financial security." Nathan's lawyer countered with evidence of Nathan's reduced work schedule, home renovations, and the strong support network now in place. Yet with every word Miranda spoke, doubt began to seep into the courtroom. Emily watched tears pooling in her eyes as adults debated her future as though she were invisible. Her small voice broke through the noise. "Your Honor, may I say something?" Judge Parker nodded, silencing the room. Emily wheeled forward, clutching her folder. "I never knew I had an aunt. She never came to see me. But my dad, he found me. He changed his whole life for me. He doesn't see my wheelchair first. He sees me." She opened the folder, showing drawings of their new home, pictures of their outings, a note from her mother. "He even learned to braid my hair," she said softly. "And he's terrible at it, but he tries. That's what matters." Miranda shifted uncomfortably. The room had shifted with the simple honesty of Emily's words. Judge Parker leaned forward. "Mrs. Sutton, while I appreciate your concern, the bond between Emily and Dr. Hale is clearly profound. Family is more than blood. It is presence. It is love." Nathan reached for Emily's hand, his heart aching with pride and fierce protectiveness. As the judge prepared to issue her ruling, Nurse Diane entered quietly, carrying a sealed envelope. The judge allowed her to speak. "Your Honor, I was the nurse on duty the night Emily was born. I recently discovered evidence that the hospital records were deliberately altered by an employee now connected to Mrs. Sutton's law firm. I believe this was an attempt to keep Dr. Hale from knowing the truth." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Miranda's face paled. Judge Parker read the document silently, then spoke. "In matters of adoption, the welfare of the child is paramount. Based on the evidence presented and the clear, deep bond between Dr. Hale and Emily Carter, this court approves the adoption." The room seemed to exhale. Emily turned and launched herself from her wheelchair into Nathan's arms, her small frame shaking with sobs of joy. Nathan held her close, his own tears falling freely. "You're my daughter," he whispered. "Forever." Miss Coleman embraced them both. Even Miranda, in a rare moment of humility, approached and handed Nathan a legal envelope. "I was wrong," she said quietly. "There is no greater home for Emily than the one you've built. Inside is a trust fund in memory of my sister. No strings." That night, back at the Haven, Emily stared at the stars outside her window. "Dad," she asked. "Yes, sweetheart, can Ms. Coleman still visit us? Maybe have her own room sometimes?" Nathan smiled, voice thick with emotion. "Absolutely. We'll make a space for her, too." In her heart, Emily knew the truth now. Home wasn't just a place. It was a promise, a circle of people who chose to love you, fight for you, and stand beside you no matter what storm might come next. Snowflakes drifted lazily past the tall windows of Nathan Hale's once sterile house, now glowing softly with the warmth of twinkling lights and laughter. It had been exactly 1 year since the courtroom had echoed with the words that changed their lives forever. Emily was officially his daughter. And in that time, the house had transformed from a quiet monument to loss into a vibrant living home. Gone were the sterile white walls and untouched furniture. Now, framed drawings from Emily lined the hallways, each one telling a piece of their story. Emily's first visit to the Charleston Aquarium, a picnic under the old oak tree by the river, their kitchen filled with flour from a baking mishap. Music drifted gently from the newly added studio where Emily often played simple melodies on her mother's piano, her fingers tracing keys her mother once touched. That morning, Nathan stood in the kitchen wearing a holiday apron that read, "World's Okayest Dad Flour," smudged across his cheek. Emily wheeled in, grinning. "You know you're getting flour everywhere, right?" "That's the point," he replied, pretending to dust her hair with it. She laughed, a sound that still made his chest ache with gratitude every single time. The kitchen had been completely redesigned, counters adjustable for Emily's height, wide-open spaces for her chair to move freely. But more than the physical changes, it was the energy of the house that had shifted. There were no longer careful silences or unused rooms. Now the house breathed with life. At noon, the doorbell rang. Emily flew to greet it, Mateo, her new therapy dog, trotting beside her tail, wagging furiously. Ms. Brenda Coleman stepped inside, arms filled with brightly wrapped gifts. Emily's face lit up. "You're here." "As if I'd missed this," Miss Coleman said warmly. She had become not just a frequent visitor, but a fixture in their lives, godparent, family, friend. Nathan had insisted on setting up a guest room, just for her, a space she used often. During lunch, as they gathered around the kitchen table, Miss Coleman pulled out a small scrapbook. "I thought we could look back 1 year of family." Page after page unfolded photos of the adoption day, Nathan and Emily baking together a picnic where Emily had made her first painting of their house, a silly shot of Nathan attempting a terribly uneven braid in Emily's hair. Laughter mingled with tears as they turned each page. When it was Emily's turn to speak, her voice was soft but certain. "This is the first Christmas where I feel whole, like I belong." Nathan reached across the table, taking her hand. "And you always will." Later that afternoon, a courier arrived unexpectedly, handing Nathan a thick envelope. Inside was a letter from Miranda Sutton, Emily's aunt. "Dr. Hale," it read, "I've spent this past year reflecting on my choices. I now understand that love cannot be measured in material wealth or social appearances. I see the family you've built with Emily, and I am humbled by it. Please accept this college trust fund for her, no conditions attached. It is the least I can do to honor the sister I lost and the niece I nearly did not know." Nathan folded the letter slowly, emotions welling in his chest. He handed it to Ms. Coleman, who read it through glassy eyes. "People can change," she whispered. "Sometimes it just takes seeing what love really looks like." That evening, after guests had left and the house settled into a peaceful hush, Nathan found Emily in the music room. She was composing a simple tune, her mother's journal open beside her. When she noticed him, she smiled. "I'm calling it Unfinished Beginnings, because that's what we are." Nathan swallowed the lump in his throat. It's perfect, just like you. He sat beside her, wrapping an arm gently around her shoulders. They listened to the melody together, a father and daughter bound not only by blood, but by every choice they had made to find each other again. The greatest lesson Nathan had learned wasn't about building ramps or modifying homes. It was that building a family is not about structure. It is about presence, about choosing every single day to love and to show up no matter the storms that may come. And as Emily's music filled the room, he knew with certainty their home had never just been a place. It was and always would be a promise. Life has a way of surprising us in the most unexpected moments. For Emily Carter, what began as a simple visit to her mother's grave unraveled a lifetime of unknown truths and opened a door she never knew existed. A little girl who had grown up believing she was alone discovered that her father, Dr. Nathan Hale, had been grieving for her all along, misled by those who had chosen deception over compassion. Through this emotional journey, Emily and Nathan rebuilt a bond that had been stolen from them, not with grand gestures, but through the quiet, everyday acts of love, shared stories, small kindnesses, patient listening, and an unwavering promise to stand by each other. Together, they turned a cold, empty house into a true home, a sanctuary of laughter, music, and warmth. The people around them, like Miss Brenda Coleman and even Miranda Sutton, became part of a larger, chosen family. They proved that love is not limited by blood or circumstance. It is something we cultivate, choose, and nurture even when it seems impossible. From this story, we can all draw a powerful lesson in compassion, patience, and the courage to forgive. Life will inevitably bring us storms, loss, betrayal, misunderstanding, but how we choose to respond defines who we are. Nathan could have allowed bitterness to consume him, but instead he chose love. Emily could have rejected a father she never knew, but she chose to trust and open her heart. Miranda, once consumed by resentment, chose humility and contribution. These choices remind us that we must meet others with grace, allow room for redemption, and understand that healing is rarely a straight path. In today's world where divisions can feel sharper and understanding can feel scarce, their story teaches us to pause to listen more deeply and to offer second chances not only to others but to ourselves. We all carry wounds. We all have opportunities to help someone else heal theirs. And sometimes building a family, whether by birth or by choice, is the most profound act of hope we can make. If this story touched your heart, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing more inspiring stories like Emily's to light. Thank you for watching, for feeling with us, and for being part of this growing community. We can't wait to share the next story with you.